So it's going to be 10 years this September, 2 months from tomorrow, since I last talked about why I support Cubbi and Sunni from the Adventures of the Gummy Bears, Disney's Adventures of the Gummy Bears, as a couple, as a pairing, or at least a pairing couple in the future. And look, I get people view them otherwise. They view them more like brother and sister, and that's understandable. That's very understandable. I mean, the way sometimes it might be presented from your perspective, that is understandable. I get it. You know, I could see that as well at times. But the reason, though, I look at it the other way, I look at it the other way, if you will, is mainly it goes back to something that we have seen numerous times in animation and live action. And what we have seen numerous times in animation and live action is certain characters growing up together that, you know, basically at first would give off that vibe of, yeah, they're kind of cute together, they're kind of cute hanging out and everything, but I don't see them being any more than just best friends. And then yet, as time goes on, depending on how long the series goes, or depending, you know, whether or not a time skip occurs in a movie, all of a sudden, those two that you wouldn't think would be more than just best friends, more like a brother and sister type, end up becoming more. And that's pretty much it. You know, that's pretty much it, because now you take it to the next level. A good example, in my opinion, that kind of reminds me of what's going on with Cubbi and Sunni in the Gummy Bear series is Nala and Simba in The Lion King. Now, we know that both in the animated and live-action movies of The Lion King, or animated live-action versions of The Lion King, we know that basically as cubs, Simba and Nala did not give off the vibe of we can't be more than just best friends or brother-sister like cubs to each other, or lions and lioness to each other, because, you know, we can't, you know, basically they gave off the vibe of they couldn't be more than, you know, what they were, like best friends, brother-sister type. And yet, you fast forward, time skip if you will, in both movies, and what happens? They reunite with each other and they fall in love. Basically, you know, causing that, I guess you could say, childish delusion that they had of, oh, we can't be more than that because we're more of just best friends, best bosom buddies, brother-sister type, if you will. Basically, them reuniting and them falling in love threw that dynamic out, that delusional, childish dynamic out the window. Because remember, when they were cubs and Zazu, you know, alluded to the fact that, yeah, you two are going to end up together, you know, whether you like it or not, they scoffed at it. They were like, bleh, you know, that's disgusting. No way. And yet, what happens? It occurs. It occurs. I mean, you know, let's look at something, another Disney property. Let's look at Disney's Recess. Okay? Let's look at this. Let's take another example, like I was saying before the phone rang there. Let's take another Disney example, Disney's Recess. And there was a pairing, you know, in Recess that was always teased, still was towards the end, but was touched upon. And these two basically looked at each other like best friends, you know, just like Nala and Simba did. And kind of like a brother-sister type, if you think about it. And that, of course, is, I think, what's his name? TJ? I think that's the lead guy. And Spinelli. And there was an episode that involved them kissing each other on the lips. And afterwards, kind of liking it, but then coming back to childish reality, like, bleh, you know, like they couldn't believe what they did, but they actually enjoyed it very briefly. But then again, like I said, they came back to reality. Now, the reason Disney did that is because they wanted to test the waters and also allude an Easter egg at the fact that, yeah, you know, if they wanted to do something like an episode that takes place in the future, hey, here's Tej and Spinelli now an item. And oh, by the way, you want to know why they're an item? We teased it in this episode, or that one episode. And to me, again, when they came back to reality and were like, bleh, again, reminded me of Nala and Simba as cubs, not liking the idea that, you know, they could basically that basically, become more than best friends and everything. But in a strange way, it does kind of remind me of Sunni and Cubbi. Like basically, you look at those two and you wouldn't think they would have any reasoning to be with each other as more than just best friends or brother and sister type. But again, it's that kind of dynamic that you look at and you realize that, yeah, they give off that kind of vibe. They give off that kind of vibe, but yet there's always, that what if factor that plays right over the head, that what if cloud that floats right over the head, if you know what I mean. So for anybody that says, Cubbi and Sunni are just brother and sister, like I said, you have all the rights to feel that way. You really do. But to me, I look at them as being in that rare category of characters that have been presented in that manner, presented as best friends, growing up together, perhaps even growing up under the same roof and such because of circumstances, and yet becoming more as they got older. And that is something that no one can truly deny is a fact. Because like I said, there are numerous animated series, numerous movies, animated movies, live action series of movies that have proven that. They have proven that. And that's a fact. I mean, even Disney's 101 Dalmatians series did this. And that was with Lucky and Two-Tone. And you say to yourself, well, what do you mean? Okay, so there was an animated short, part of one of the episodes on Saturday mornings, where basically it was the second of the bunch, and it was called Love 'Em or Flee 'Em, Love 'Em or Flee 'Em, and it was established here that Lucky had a thing for Two-Tone, and in a sense, Two-Tone kind of felt the same way, but for the time, storyline-wise, she was with Mooch until she realized Mooch was basically a jerk. You know what I mean? So who did she end up going with as legitimately visualizing him as her knight in shining armor to the rescue? Who did she end up going with? Lucky. Now, some people might say, but some people might ask, well, wait a minute. Didn't the live-action movie establish these two were from the same litter? Yes, they did. Yes, it did. But here's the thing. Even though they were from the same litter, from a realistic standpoint, that sometimes doesn't really apply to dogs or cats. You can be from the same litter, but it doesn't mean you have to totally view yourself as brother and sister. You can view yourself as friends, as best friends. I mean, the beginning of the episode has Cat Pig and Two-Tone hanging out as best friends, not sisters. You kind of see what I'm saying? And again, people will argue the fact that, wait a minute, Two-Tone and Lucky are from the same litter according to the movie. How is it possible to put them together? That doesn't make sense. And again, it's all about the fact that they play off the realistic idea that even cats and dogs from the same litter could end up together. Because basically they ignore that law of incest. They just say, yep, you're born from the same litter, but now you're not even really brother and sister or whatever. That's pretty much it. And that's why I look at Cubbi and Sunni, and I say to myself that if Disney wanted to revive this series, if they wanted to revive it and age the characters up to teenage, if not early adult age, I could see them without a shadow of a doubt, in my opinion. And I think anybody would agree with this. I could see them without a shadow of a doubt if they wanted to age Cubbi and Sunni up to young adult age, 18 plus 19, whatever, years of age, 20 if you will, I would not put it past them, to pair these two together. I wouldn't. And I think anybody listening to this or watching it on YouTube, and listening to it on YouTube, I should say, and my podcast, I don't think anybody here would disagree with that. I don't think they would. Because, again, you have, excuse me, because again, you have to think about the idea that just because, they're growing up in the same tree, Gummi Glen, and now in the city of Usala, if you will, just because they're growing up in the same area or have grown up together, and acted more like brother, sister, or best friends, doesn't mean something more couldn't happen. Again, I take you back to that, to that moment in Lion King, those various moments in Lion King. As cubs, Nala and Simba scoffed at the idea that they would become more than just what they were, best friends, brother, sister type, right? They scoffed at it. They said, "Bleh, that's not going to happen." Yet what happens? They end up together, just like Zazu said they would. So you see what I'm saying? Just because, characters are presented one way and people view them in that manner, which everybody has a right to, it doesn't mean that, Disney or the creators behind Gummi Bears would go in that direction, and keep them that way. They might surprise you and go in a different direction. They might surprise you and say, let's put them together. Because you know what? They are in that rare situation to where it could potentially, legitimately happen down the line. And I think everybody listening to this, realizes that without a shadow of a doubt. They realize this without a shadow of a doubt, that could indeed happen. And you know what? I would not be surprised that if they want to do a Disney Afternoon revival in the future, because let's not forget, one of the places that is not truly affected by this whole double strike situation in Hollywood is animation. They have sort of like a little more freedom to do what they want, even if they support the friends. If Disney during this time want more content, then animation, which they built their empire on, honestly, is the best way to go. And if they felt like saying, hey, we want to revive the Gummi Bears to help fill in that void of not having new content, they could do it. And there is no doubt that if they were to do that, bring the Gummi Bears back and everything, age up Sunni and Cubbi, and then go in the direction of making them more than just brother-sister type or best friends growing up together, I have no doubt in my mind people would actually be happy that moment would happen. They would. Now, like I said, you have a right to feel the other way around. You really do. You have that right. You have a right to feel like, hey, they're just brother and sister, best friends. It's not going to really happen, that kind of pairing. And again, I respect anybody that feels that way, believes that. I really do. But again, when you look at how they are if you look again at how they are presented compared to those that I just mentioned, I would not put it past Disney to want to do something like that if they wanted to revive the series, as a movie, as a new series, age up the characters to young adults. I would not put it past them to do that. I wouldn't. I really wouldn't, because they're in that kind of a situation. I mean, when you look at Darkwing Duck, if you will, the original Darkwing Duck, if they wanted to revive that, because we know Seth Rogen was, and hopefully still currently is, maybe put it on hold right now because of the writer's strike deal, but we know Seth Rogen wants to do a Darkwing Duck reboot. We know that. However, we don't know if he wants to keep it in the Disney Afternoon universe where it started, or make it completely new, or base it off what we got in DuckTales, the new DuckTales, if you will. We don't know. But here's the thing. You look at the original Darkwing Duck, and if they wanted to continue that in some capacity and age up Gosling and Honker, you can't tell me that they wouldn't pair Gosling and Honker up as an item. Now you might say, well, there's no way that would happen. Gosling's too tomboyish, Honker's too much of a scientific nerd. There's no way it would work. But again, you have to realize, that just because they look like, they look like they're just, BFFs and all that, and that's all they'll ever be because of their differences, that doesn't mean, that doesn't mean romance is not in the air, because it would be. It truly would be. So again, you can't say one thing or the other. You can't. You can't really, look by that or anything and say it's not going to happen, because it just might. I mean, heck, look, speaking of DuckTales 2017, that final season, the final season that cemented the fact that this was a true Disney afternoon television cinematic-like universe, with Rescue Angels and all that. Let's take a look at the episode with Kid Cloudkicker in it. Let's take a look at that one. Who appeared at the end to basically allow history to repeat itself? Who appeared at the end? Molly Cunningham. And you would say to yourself, well, Molly was younger than Kid. Like, I don't know, 7 years younger? There's no way she should be just as old as he is. But guess what? She is. She's been aged up to be not 7 or 8 years younger, but just a couple of years. Kind of like her mom. And we all saw in the original Tailspin series, what was teased a lot? Especially with the episode of Stars Torn. What was teased a lot? Rebecca and Baloo as an item. So you can't tell me they didn't play off that idea and say, let's tease the idea that, hey, Molly and Kid could be together. Because guess what? Even though that wasn't really touched upon in the original series, because of the massive age difference, come on. Seriously, you don't think the writers that were working on DuckTales, the new DuckTales series, when they brought that episode to life, weren't, thinking to themselves, man, if Molly was just a little older in the original show, they could have teased something between him and Kit, her and Kit. They could have teased something between her and Kit. And guess what? Probably thinking about that, they realized, well, if we're going to involve Tailspin in this, involve the grown-up Kit, we might as well involve the grown-up Molly and make her not 7 or 8 years younger, but just a couple of years, maybe even a year. You see what I'm saying? Just because you don't think it could happen because of certain things doesn't mean it won't. That is why, looking at this from my perspective, this is why I always believe that if they chose to do so, for future projects, future animation projects, I would not be surprised that if they brought the Gummi Bears back, revived them, aged up certain characters like Cubbi and Sunni to young adult age, I would not put it past them to pair these two together as an item. I wouldn't. Because you know what? You could say Buddy and Sunni is better, and that's great. That's a great, ship if you want to go with it. Don't get me wrong. You could even say Sunni and Gusto would be a great, ship, because that's the person, Sunni's been wanting to get after for quite some time. But the truth is, when you really get down to it, in my opinion, there is no doubt that all roads would be leading towards Cubbi and Sunni. It's just the way I see it, just the way how I view it, if you will. Because again, you look at all the examples that I've mentioned, from various other Disney properties, animation-wise, and you kind of understand where I'm coming from. You do. I mean, if you want to like a very recent, I wouldn't say it's recent, but if you want to look at a more popular example, let's take a look at Kim Possible. Let's take a look at that. And I'm not talking the live action movie, I'm talking the series, the animated series of movies. Let's look at Kim Possible. Let's look at that, okay? I wouldn't say no one, but let's take a look at that. The way Kim and Ron's friendship was presented was they were best friends. They were best friends that were only kind of flirtatiously attracted to each other, but nothing more. And the only time things were teased that there could be something more with them was when Kim, along with Shigo, ended up falling into a love spell or something that controlled their emotions or whatever. That was only one time, That was the first tease. And then Kim giving Ron a kiss under the mistletoe during the Christmas special, or the Christmas episode. That was the other tease. And then when did we get the official, like, yep, they're an item now? That was the soda drama movie, which was originally supposed to be the finale, but it wasn't. You kind of see what I'm saying? Basically, they took something that was presented as, oh, they're just going to be best friends. They're not going to be anything more than that. They took that and they said, nah. If we're going to conclude this series with a movie or a final season, we're going to put these two together finally. And that's what they did. That's what they did. And you can't tell me that's not a fact. It's not because they knew fans wanted it to happen. It's not because they knew fans wanted it to happen, but it's because they knew that fans would not be satisfied with anything less. Because if they just continuously tease the fact that play around with the fact that they're just best friends and everything and nothing more, they knew that would get under the fans' skin. They knew it. So they basically said, no, we got to go all the way. We got to make these two an item, and that's what they did. That's what they did. Period. Again, there's a lot of various examples, as strangely as it sounds, from Disney itself that prove this. A lot of examples. And this is why it always feels good, in my opinion, to back this ship. It really does. It really feels good to back it, because I know that if Disney revived this series, in any capacity and aged up the characters, they would do it. They would go that route because they're in that category. They are. But that's just me. Now, could I be wrong? Yeah, I could be wrong if they revive and they say, nah, we're not going to do that. We'll just keep it the way it was. Yeah, I could be wrong. But what about you guys? Do you think I'm on to something here? Do you think, it's a possibility? Let me know what your thoughts are. Comment below, live chat during the premiere. Like the video. Super chats are open in the live chat during the premiere. Also, check me out at my Patreon page. I'm at BW Rosas. Support me at BW Rosas Discussions, which is my podcast that you can listen to at all your favorite audio podcast locations, except for Pandora. But more specifically, check out BW Rosas Discussions on Spotify. The more you listen there, the more I'll get recommended for ambassador ads that will help me out financially in the long run to help build the brand more. Also, guys, check me out at my Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think, again, like I said, am I on to something? Or do you think maybe they would just keep it the way it is if they wanted to revive it? Let me know down below, and until then, I'll talk to y'all later.